Let's go.
So sick, boy, better call a doctor. My team ballin' like the Knickerbockers.
Episode 6.
Rim rockers, silk sockers, throw your hands up like Serge Ibaka.
What's up, people? I am Jay East. This is episode number 6. And I'd like to welcome you to the channel. If you have been here before, thank you for returning. If this is your first time here, I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of what it is we're going to be talking about. For episode 6, we're going to be talking about ethical growth. Ethical growth is the 5th part in the high 5 of growth. So obviously this means if you have put together all of the other parts that we have spoken about and you put together this 5th part, you have the full tools for the full high 5. So let's get straight into it. Whoa. To talk about ethical growth, the first thing we have to talk about is that's right, ethics. See, ethics play a huge part in almost everything that we do, whether we realize it or not. And obviously, if we're going to be talking about ethical growth, we have to talk about ethics. So exactly what are ethics? What does that mean? How do we determine what ethics are? See, ethics refer to your moral principles or values. Your ethics create your standard of behavior. This is your minimum and maximum standard that you decide that either you or others should behave at. Now keep in mind, this is what you decide. So this is entirely opinionated to say. Your opinion on what you think is moral or morally sound will differ from someone else's opinion about what is morally sound. And that's fine. That's okay. Because in everyone's ethics, in everyone's moral standing, there's a certain value or a certain understanding that there are just certain things that are withstanding to everyone, right? Or at least they should be. And this leads directly to the next part on what I wanted to talk about. See, conflict usually occurs. Arguments occur, discussions occur, issues occur, usually when your ethics don't match that of someone else's, or someone else's doesn't match yours. It's that simple. That's exactly where conflict will occur. And I'll tell you why. Conflict occurs when you have a different standard of behavior. So you believe that someone should behave a different way for your own reasons. See, everyone has their own code of ethics. Everyone has their ethics. Whether they're high or low, whether they're in detailed or blurry, it doesn't matter. Everyone has some form of code of ethics. It's just different people have different standards. And I don't want to use the term higher or lower, so I don't want to say like, higher ethics or lower ethics. I think that's a little negative. More so what I would prefer to use would be the wording of heavier or lighter. Some people have heavier ethics than others, and other people have lighter ethics than others. Doesn't mean that necessarily there's a difference in their understanding of right or wrong. It just means some people hold their ethics a little bit heavier while some people don't. Heavier ethics or heavier standards usually means that there are more restraints involved. What that means is there are more limitations or more boundaries, and usually this will lead to people feeling that some people think that they're better than others, or it might lead to the presumption that some people think they can behave differently than others. But that's not necessarily the case. See, it's important to emphasize again that these are entirely opinionated. These standards or these rules that were created by people that look just like you and look just like me. That's exactly where they came from. These aren't hard, fast, set rules. Society has its own set of ethics or standards. There are business ethics or standards. You have character ethics or standards. There are so many different forms of ethics and standards, and what they all come back to is they're all entirely based on opinion, whether it's something that I have designated to myself as important or whether it's something that you have designated to yourself as important. In society and in societal structures, rules are created and meant not to be broken. But exactly who makes the rules is what makes things very important. See, if we trust the person that's making the rules, then we're more likely to abide to the rules. If we have a lower level of trust for whoever it is has determined that these are the rules, usually we have a lower reason to abide to the rules, and we have more reason to break the rules. See, it really depends on who makes the rules. And the next catch to that is sometimes people don't care who makes the rules. See, people don't like to feel like someone is governing over them when they don't even know who the person is, because that means that the person doesn't know who they are either. It goes both ways. This is usually why rules, which are meant not to be broken, end up broken. The next argument that people make is, well, rules are meant to be broken. But if rules were meant to be broken, and we broke all of the rules, then the real question is, why do we have the rules to begin with? See, you kind of have to ask yourself that question. If we're going to break every rule, why do we even have the rule? Why are we even trying to abide to any of these rules? See, what makes us decide whether or not to follow any of the rules or to omit any of the rules goes right back to, that's right, your ethics. Because you or someone else may view that some of those rules are ethical, they will abide to them, or they will tell others to abide to them because of an understanding or a reasoning that they or another group of people agree to. But the question that I want to ask you now is, what does ethical mean, and what motivates someone to be ethical, or what motivates something to be ethical? Your motivation, your motives, we have to look at those, because if you want to grow ethically, you have to look at what fuels you. You also have to look at your morals, what you view is morally sound and what you view is immoral or immoral. Your morals create the distinction between what you believe is right and what you believe is wrong. That comes from your morals. And your ethics determine whether you stick to your morals in tough situations. See, this is why they're tied. Because your morals will tell you whether something is good or bad, and your ethics will tell you in a tough situation whether or not you should still follow your morals. When there's no outcome in the situation that benefits you, then that falls directly on your morals. But when the outcome of the situation either affects you in a positive or a negative way, or someone that you know, that will now come down to your ethics. Now that we've gone into the definition of exactly what ethics is, what they are, and what it means to be ethical or to do something ethically, now we've kind of gone into the gist of that and we've broken down the morals and the motives. Now we have to go into how to grow ethically. To grow ethically, the first thing you have to do is you have to examine your actions and your motives. So it's your actions and your motives. And the reason why you have to examine them is because if one is true and the other is not, then there's going to be a discord between your ethical morals and how you decide to go about things. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, if your actions are right and you can tell yourself that the way that you're going about something is the correct way, but your motive is not correct, meaning you're trying to manipulate someone, or you're trying to manipulate something, or you know that the reason that you're doing this is wrong, then that means, boom, first of all, it's probably not ethical or it's not moral. On the flip end of that, let's look at it from the reverse. Let's say your motive behind doing something is correct. It's completely right. But your actions are not correct. Meaning you're doing things in a wrong way and you know that that's not the right way to do it. Boom, same thing. That means that either it's not ethical or it's not moral. The two have to fall in line with each other. Your actions have to be just as good as your motives, and your motives need to be just as good as your actions. They can't be one over the other. They have to be balanced with each other. Both have to be correct. See, examining your motives will allow you to get a better sense of your morals. Usually, most cases, once we've realized that our motives aren't pure or we're doing something for the wrong motive, we'll usually realize that our morals are not in alignment with our motive. And at that point, it's entirely up to you to decide how to move forward. So, in order to grow ethically, you have to be able to examine those before you even move forward with your action. So examine your motives first. After you've examined your motives, then you can examine your actions. Because your actions, ready? Your actions, once you examine those actions, they will now give you the chance to see whether or not it falls in line with your integrity. Yeah, that's another big word that we're going to throw out there. Integrity. Most people want their integrity to remain intact. And in order to keep your integrity intact, you have to continually grow ethically. Because if you don't, sooner or later, what will happen is you will find yourself not examining these situations. And when you don't examine them, you'll find yourself doing things that either 1, your motives aren't pure, 2, your actions aren't pure, 3, your morals aren't right, or 4, your ethics are completely off base. And if any of these things happen, usually it's going to infect your integrity. So you have to continually grow so you can make sure that doesn't happen for the negative. The other reason why it's important that you grow your ethics is because by growing your individual ethics, what you're doing is you're developing your ethics. And this is really important because the way how you develop your ethics will also play a role in how the people around you develop theirs. This can be your family, this can be your friends, this can be your co-workers, this can be people that you interact with. See, everyone has a pretty solid, firm foundation of what their ethics are, aside from children. Children gain their ethics from what they're taught by their parents, by their teachers, and by other things that influence them in society. But if they're taught the wrong things, then they have a wrong basis. To the same extent, if things are omitted, whether you're a child or an adult, then when you run into that situation, your ethics, you won't know what to do. This is why it's really important that you continue to develop your ethics. Because as you're developing your ethics and the way how you're behaving and the way how you're reacting to certain things and the decisions that you make, others are going to be affected by what you're doing. In life, everyone is attached to someone. And what we sometimes forget is that we're attached to complete strangers without even knowing it. Someone can see you do the right thing, and because they've seen you do it, it will lead them to think, okay, I should try to do something like that too. We hear it all the time with these Good Samaritan cases, with people that just have very good ethics, or at least for themselves, their ethical standard of behavior is completely different than everyone else's. So in the moment, they rose to their standard of behavior. And because they did that, sometimes we'll notice that other people will see it, be affected by it, and decide to also be the change. It's kind of like that phrase, be the change in the world that you want to see. That kind of comes to play with your ethics. See, your ethics will kind of help you decide whether or not you're a positive change or a negative change. And this is the reason why I'm saying you have to develop your ethics, because if you're developing your ethics, then you will be the change. as you're slowly becoming more strong in your ethics, as you're slowly developing your ethics more, what you're doing is you're now enabling other people that when they see it, they want to be the change too. They want to do what you've done. And whether or not you realize it, people want that. People will see you and they will be affected by what you do, and they will not tell you. So it's important that they're affected by positive things and not negative things. You don't want someone to be negatively affected by what you've done. You don't want them to go out and then continue to do negative things because you've left a negative impact in them. That's not what you want. At least I hope that's not what you want. Another way to grow ethically is to examine the opposite. So what do I mean by examine the opposite? When I say examine the opposite, what I'm saying is I'm saying to examine the opposite of how you would normally conduct yourself. Whatever is the action that you would normally do, examine what the opposite of that would be first. The opposite action or motive should be a direct opposite to your morals. The opposite action or motive should be a direct opposite of your principles. And your principles should roll right back to your morals, which will roll right back to your ethics. See how they're all kind of linked? If your actions are truly good actions and your motives are truly good motives, the exact opposite of your actions and your motives should be bad actions and bad motives. There should be no blurring in between. There should be no, it can kind of be, mistook as, no. If what you're doing is truly good, meaning you have a truly good motive for what you're doing and you're going about that in a truly good action, then the opposite of that should not be good in any sense. Why? Because it's the opposite. The opposite of good will never be good. See, the opposite of cold can never be cold. It has to be an opposite. The opposite of good is bad. The opposite of cold is hot. So the opposite of your actions should be a complete negative. But what if the opposite of your actions and motives are not that far off from what you are planning to do? See, in that scenario, you have to ask yourself, how strong, how developed are your ethics if what you thought was good is really not that far off from what's bad? As members and as individuals of organizations and companies and society and humanity as a whole, we have to continue to grow so we can affirm to ourselves exactly what is right and what is wrong. Once we've affirmed exactly, what it is right and wrong, and we're sure and concise in our thought process, and there's no gray area, then and only then should we move forward with our opinions and share those with others so that they can use that as a basis to create their set of morals, their set of motives, their set of standards, their set of ethics. And we want to be able to share our opinions and our beliefs with others because this is how we can continue to grow as a society. See, if no one ever shared their opinions or their beliefs, there would be no rules. There would be no governing body to determine whether or not something is right or wrong. There would be nothing. It would be the wild, wild west. People would do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want, because they would think that it's okay. They would think that it was right. And if no one else objected to that, then they would continue with that behavior. But as with all forms of growth, we have to be able to be willing to acknowledge that we have to grow. And in order to acknowledge that we have to grow, we have to be willing to acknowledge that we're wrong. We can't always be right. If you're always right, then there's no room for growth. This is the reason why you can't be perfect. You can try to be perfect, but if you ever did attain perfection or at least what you deemed as perfection, then there will be no room to grow. There's no room to move up. And as things age and as different things change and society as a whole gets better, you will still be stuck in your perfection, which really isn't that perfect if you think about it. So as a whole, whether it's ethically, whether it's emotionally, whether it's spiritually, whether it's mentally, whether it's physically, the number one way for you to grow is to acknowledge that you need to grow. And then once you've acknowledged that, you can move forward. Until you've done that, it's just not going to happen. You're not going to grow in a real way. You can't accidentally grow. You have to acknowledge it. You have to be willing to make the changes to reach that growth. See, it's not easy. That's hard. But as I've said before, if it was easy, then why even bother trying? There would be no incentive. It'd be too easy. Everybody would do it. You gotta go for the things that are hard. And you have to be willing to take the risk and attempt something that's hard and fail a couple of times so that you can learn from that, so that you can succeed. Then you'll be able to grow. That's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them below in the comments. If you just want to leave me a comment, you can do that too. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you love the video, please feel free to share it with someone else. If you didn't love the video and you didn't like it and you still want to share the video, that's pretty cool too. Please feel free to share it with someone else that you think will enjoy the information. And if you have not subscribed already, please subscribe to the channel. I will be posting more videos, and I will be posting some more growth videos every week on Mondays. That's pretty much it. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Oh yeah. Thank you for watching.